Welcome to the Walking Dead reviews on What the Flick. We are talking about the season 7 finale, the first day of the rest of your life. But before we get there, this is Tim, this is Francis, I'm Kim, and we are all sipping Gato Negro wine.
Yeah.
So thanks to them for providing this lovely wine for us. Cheers, gentlemen.
We can
Cheers,
celebrate this
season.
finale with style.
Okay, that's good. So for this episode, perhaps predictably, perhaps unpredictably, though I like to talk to you if you didn't predict this, we saw the end of a major character, and that is Sasha. She's been around for 4 seasons, starting as Tyrese's little sister and becoming a warrior of her own, and eventually going out in this one. Tim, you are scoffing.
I totally forgot that she was Tyrese's little sister.
She's also a firefighter.
Yeah.
She went out with Bob for a while. She's got a long run on this show.
She's been there a while.
But I mean, if anyone follows Star Trek news,
Yeah, we heard about this.
it's been a pretty well not kept secret until today that Sonequa Martin Green will be the star of Star Trek Discovery and will no longer have time to be on The Walking Dead.
I think she's a really great actress. Those scenes with Abraham were really, I mean, at times in between how hectic the scene was going, I didn't really care for them as much because I was so ready for action to happen. But they had a really powerful meaning in the end, which I kind of saw coming. But I thought that they were very well acted, and she's very captivating. I feel like she's grew as a character just as much as some of the main ones that we all know and love, like Daryl and how he's evolved through this whole world. And I feel like her character, I mean, she's been through her fair share of heartbreak in losing Bob and then losing Abraham. So I think it was a fitting end to her. Like, of the other characters, the shock value of killing off one of the main ones is obviously would be huge, but I feel like Sasha kind of set this up. I mean, at the last episode, or 2 episodes ago, I believe, when she prevented Rosita from getting into the prison, she said it wasn't your time, which basically just meant it's my time.
For a while, like, I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna die, I am a warrior, I'm going to have a warrior's death. And indeed she did, because her move after death was to keep on fighting, ostensibly. So, yeah, I think we all could have predicted, even within the meta of the show, that it was going to end this way. I did like how jarring it was to keep, before we figured out what was happening, we have this scene of Sasha just sitting in darkness with the iPod headphones on, just like sweating, and we don't know what's happening, and later we find out, oh, these are her last moments on Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where she's thinking about her memories of Abraham back in the day. I was hoping they would show Glenn, but of course they didn't. But it was nice to see that.
They sort of shoehorned Glenn in there a little bit towards the end.
A little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I liked Sasha's storyline. I thought it was a good close to her, and it sort of made the whole season about her, even if it was, kind of written in after the fact. It was a nice touch. The song she was listening to was "Someday We'll All Be Free," which I think is, what she wanted for her group and her family was for them to be free, and hopefully with this gesture she could do it. Now, I think there's an awful lot of ifs that go with her plan.
Because you don't know what's going to happen after you turn Walker.
There's no way that you know that Negan is going to want you to travel in a coffin and then stand the coffin up on the truck and then monologue next to it and then open it slowly unarmed. There's just no way Sasha could have predicted that. But it was still a surprising and jarring effect. It was one of the few things that the show does where I was like, oh, I did not see that coming.
Even
though they laid out all the steps for it ahead of time, which is smart writing.
I saw a lot of reviews leading up to me watching this that were like, The Walking Dead sucks. The Walking Dead has nothing to say. I really liked this episode because we're going to war now, and my thought was, finally, this is what has to happen, and we've been kind of, pedaling slowly over there, but it has to be a war. There has to be casualties. Something crazy has to happen in order to resolve this. They probably won't resolve it for a while, but I like that we're moving in that direction with the group.
It just means that this whole season was a setup for next season. We introduce all the characters, we see the inevitable betrayal. Our heroes, think they're going to triumph and then are struck down at the last minute, but come back with renewed resolve and purpose, as do the villains.
Yeah, so. I mean, it was set up, and it would have been a perfect way to kill, to have, maybe even to kill Negan. We knew that was not going to happen, right? Because he's too good of a villain, and even though in those moments I wanted to see something happen to him, I just knew that from a business standpoint, it wouldn't make any sense because then you'd have to introduce a new villain. But I mean, Sasha coming out of the coffin and maybe biting him would have been perfect. The tiger biting him would have been perfect as well, considering that he started the season by saying, catch a tiger by its tail, catch a tiger by its tail, sorry, whatever.
I forgot all about that.
It started that way and then it ended with a tiger mauling a few of his people, so it was kind of fitting the way that worked out. But yeah, the show, this season has kind of been fluctuating a little bit, but this episode kept me interested and it left me angry. Not left me angry at the episode. It left me angry at how how Negan was able to evade and was able to go back and formulate his own army now, and without really seeing Rick be able to enact his revenge. Because that scene where it was so, it mirrored the opening episode of the season where Rick and Negan were basically staring face to face, and Rick was broken. He was petrified. He was shaking. He couldn't handle it. And now in this part, yeah, he's devastated if Carl's going to die, but he doesn't want to go down looking weak. And he looks strong, even though he's got tears coming out. He looks him in the eye and says, "I'm going to kill you." And that's where I kind of believe that I wanted them to go forth and do that. So not angry at the episode, just angry that we haven't seen justice served yet.
All right, I'll be a little angry at the episode. One of the problems that Walking Dead is continuing to suffer from is that they have these big, gigantic battles where no one important dies. Now, this was Sasha's episode. You want to let Sashas' death be impactful and mean something, and I think it did. But if you have 100 people shooting fully automatic weapons at each other, somebody should die. Rosita was the only person that was shot, not mortally.
Rick was shot.
Rick was shot in the side by Jadis. Okay, that's fair, but of all of the named characters that we had, nobody died. Nobody.
Yeah.
And that's plot armor at the strictest definition.
I mean, that's a fair criticism. I mean, this was, I guess, Sasha's episode where we got to see her go out in a blaze of glory. She wasn't even one of the most major characters core to the series. She's a beloved character. She's a long time character. But at what point, I mean, what's going to happen when a character like Daryl or Carol goes? Is it going to be this kind of fanfare? Is it the kind of thing where only one goes at a time and we can read between the meta of the show and understand how it's going to go and kind of follow a predictable pattern? That's not a good place to be.
The last two major deaths we had, I mean, the whole first half of this season was about grieving over Glenn, and it seems like the whole second half was about grieving over Abraham, because Sasha and Rosita were such larger characters in the second half of this season.
Yeah.
So clearly they have impactful main character deaths, but you have just a ton of named characters on this show, and none of them are ever going anywhere because you don't want to deal with the fallout of a whole nother half grieving season. I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
I did like the theme that was brought up in the flashback parts about having a death be worthwhile and having, or going out like a warrior per se, and for the reason why they're all doing this. And then that made I thought of that again when we got to the scavengers betrayal, which did seem to come out of nowhere because we had been given nothing to indicate that they would.
Come out of nowhere?
I didn't think they would betray them.
They said over and over again, we don't do, we just take. We go with whatever the best offer is. If ever there was a group that you were not supposed to trust, it was these guys.
There was no indication that they would flip after already saying they would do this thing for them. And then they did. And we get to this idea of what is the point of this? Why are we doing this? Why are we fighting so hard? Why are we suffering? Why are we pushing? Why don't we all just kill ourselves right now, basically? And it's because we want to be on that plane higher than just survival or just like getting the food we need or the water we need. We need to be on this higher plane of humanity of, kind of like where we are now, where we're in civilization beyond, hunting and gathering and making sure that we just don't starve to death tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it has to be that plane that's worth fighting for, and this idea that the future will get better and will be better for everyone involved.
Yeah, well,
I liked that.
Yeah, it was a powerful scene where, when you think about it, say you're part of the scavengers who managed to evade somewhat without being killed. Say you're the leader of the scavengers who were able to get away from that scene. The idea of the scene with Michonne, who's battered, bruised, can barely even talk. Horrible looking, but she like her
and Rick. Did you believe for a second she fell off the roof?
No.
Okay.
I never thought Michonne would die. She's too important. She's like a hero character.
Yeah. But the show keeps setting us up for those little gotcha moments that just not even close.
Like I never thought Daryl would stab Dwight in the eye either.
Yeah.
I never believed he would.
So yeah, and in that scene, Michonne and Rick, have that moment where they don't need to say anything. Well, Rick's like, as if to say, okay, we fought, now this is what living is. This is what it is. So the idea of that scene, I think, is to show, it may look to the exterior that she's in a lot worse off of a situation than maybe someone who left unscathed like Negan or the leader of the scavengers, but they have something to fight for now. They're showcasing that this is basically the way to go forth and survive. So I imagine now with the scavengers, some of them getting away and retreating, that they're going to be another group that Rick is going to target in the next season to basically rid them of, unless they're somehow convinced to come back and take another deal, which I don't think would happen.
I, as a viewer, want revenge on them.
Yeah, so do I. More so than
maybe Rick never thinks about them again. Maybe they go back into hiding and they never come up in the show again. But I need satisfaction, personally. I need them on the chopping block.
Yeah, like Abraham says, you got to put your own Ghibli's on the chopping block for someone else. That's how you know you're living.
You always remembering the good lines.
Yeah, Abraham's got the best lines.
Ghibli's on the chopping block.
I will say that those flashbacks to that room where she wakes up from the dream and they're about to leave on what would be Abraham's last day was a well-written scene, and it convinced me that Sasha and Abraham had something real.
Yeah, exactly.
I've just never seen that from them before.
I mean, that's been a problem, which is I never really bought their relationship.
But I know that there are good writers on this show that can write scenes like that can convince me of things. Yeah. I don't know why they keep holding back.
I think it was needed in this episode because Sasha was gonna die, so they had to remind you of that kind of emotional connection, because she hadn't been as prominent throughout the season. Let's be honest, she was there a couple episodes. So to have someone, we know that The Walking Dead, you can tell when someone's gonna die because they give you, like
Tyrese had the same episode where he dreamed of the past, or dreamed of ghosts rather.
Yeah, even Benjamin, when it was the kid before they went out and he was like, had that little connection with Carol. It was like, oh, you're gonna teach me? Oh, think about it, bang, you're done. As soon as you show any sort of emotion or connection with another human being and they zone in on it and the camera's on you, you'd be as well just saying bye-bye, because you're heading out.
Yeah. You know who was the most present and aware person in this whole episode?
Who?
Fucking Carl.
Carl, yeah.
Carl was on that shit.
He shot the first. He was the one that fired straight away after everything went crazy.
Total redemption for Carl.
I thought you were going to say the tiger.
Yeah, he did. Oh, the tiger as well. That was
tiger was good, and that's the best animation we've seen from the tiger so far.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Ezekiel's comments a little bit cheesy for me, but he's the king. Like, he talks that way.
I think it works.
His whole group is a little bit cheesy.
Yeah, but the way like Alexandra
if anyone was going to get on, this is not the day, not this day. It should be him.
I think Morgan had easily one of the most badass moments as well, when he was shooting and he threw his gun away and then he did his little stick thing, just stabbed someone in the face and then just walked as if he was just
Can you imagine if Morgan had held them up for another couple minutes with his nonsense on the road and they would have been late?
Very
awkward.
That would have been bad.
The tiger's here and the Sabres are all packing up to leave. Everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as we move into season 8, I guess next season is going to be all about war? Fighting?
Yes, I think
sabotage? I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
We didn't see Gregory this episode.
We don't know where
what
he
was up to.
Yeah, Well, maybe he might have been part of the reason why they were kind of warned about what was going on. Because the scavengers sold them out. And we didn't even really talk about Eugene, who basically was just going to be a sacrificial lamb right now.
There were a bunch of double agents in this episode. We don't know where Eugene's loyalty lies. We don't really know where Dwight's loyalty lies, although we do get that little figurine at the end, indicating to Daryl.
I think Eugene and Dwight are going to end up helping the main group.
Yeah, I think only one of those two.
Interesting.
Ooh, which one?
Only one.
Well, I thought it was actually quite a good scene with Rick. You could tell there was pain on his face when to him, Eugene had crossed over, but he wasn't happy about blowing him up. Let's say he wasn't just going to be like, all right, well, basically you messed up, I'm going to do it. Like, he clearly could see some sort of redemption. I think he understands why Eugene was forced into this situation, but he still was, like, the way Negan worded it was just typical Negan. Like, that's why I love him as a villain and hate him so much, because in that moment, with everything that's going on, he puts the blame on how Rick and everyone else are animals. You're going to kill one of your own right in front of you. It's just so, like, I feel like they spend so much time writing Negan's dialogue that sometimes it detracts away from everyone else, because everything he says is so perfect. Like, the way that he says it is so well acted.
In that moment, I was just like, oh, he's got a point.
Yeah,
I would have blown him up too.
Yeah,
I would have been the bad person.
And that's what we've been talking about it quite a lot on our reviews the whole season, is like, there's got to be that cloudiness between what our group that we all love are doing to get themselves back into like the pole position. I mean, they don't want to control everything, but they don't want to be controlled as well. So it's about how they get back to that. Who do they need to sacrifice? What do they need to do?
You say that, but we had that episode where Rick and Michonne are talking about being in control and running the show, and that they could do it better than Negan does.
Yeah. Well, and
they could unite all these 3 groups together, which is probably how Negan's group started.
Yeah, and what they did to Oceanside is so Negan-esque. They went in and just took the guns.
There's ways to argue that both ways.
You don't think that was Negan? That's why that episode alone. That's why I'm happy that it's doing this.
The ends are the same. The means are different, and now they don't have the guns. And now they're going to go back to Oceanside and say, "Hey, sorry, we don't have any guns, and now we do need your help."
Yeah.
And
it's going to be interesting how they formulate it.
That's going to be a little awkward.
But hopefully they start the season the way they started this season, like the way they teased us for so long, and then bang, bang, bang.
I hated that.
No, the way that they actually, the season premiere, they didn't not live up to it. Well, I think the cliffhangers were going to walk.
We have sort of a look back on how this all started and how Maggie's decision to come and save Alexandria was made in season 1, episode 1, when Glenn saved Rick.
Yeah.
Sort of, I don't know, explaining that this is all fate and on a trajectory that is out of their hands, and that the decision to be a good person and to help each other and to become a family was a foregone conclusion,
I don't know if
I
that's
guess.
fate. I think it might be more just like learning a lesson or loving each other or
staying true to Glenn's legacy.
Altruism, humanity. I think that's what's laying down the groundwork for her, rather than some kind of fatalistic, I have to do this.
Yeah. It felt like a series finale speech. Because it tied back to episode 1.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Maybe. Now I'm thinking about how they could possibly end this.
Yeah.
The answer is they won't.
Yeah,
until it
keep it
becomes
going
unprofitable.
Yeah.
I mean, looking forward, I don't know how they could possibly end this. It's unclear exactly where they can go with this series and what they can say that's new and interesting that hasn't already been voiced before in the very series.
I think that it would be foolish if they were trying to bring another antagonist into it, because no one's going to live up to it's taken them 7 seasons, really. They've been through a bunch. It's not like every new villain brings in, you're like, oh, that's the worst. Like, I always thought the governor was probably the worst at this point. The way, like, he was way more intimidating to me than the cannibals or anyone else, whereas Negan he's just everything that he encompasses, like you're automatically watching it and you're petrified about who might come down. You said that, there's characters that just seem to be untouchable, but there's something about him that, I don't know, that it fluctuates a little bit. Sometimes I think he could just act out and take someone. But you were mentioning how no one out of our, like the group that we love, died. I actually was expecting someone more powerful in Negan's camp to be taken out, at least one, to kind of cause
nobody with a
one.
name.
Simon waltzed away free.
I thought Simon would get killed by the tiger, and he didn't.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's still around.
So
that tiger knows exactly who the red shirts are. That's for sure.
Very true. Oh yeah, I was going to say that. That's very
so
true.
does Sonequa Martin Green, who will be going to Star Trek.
Nice.
So we're gonna come back for season 8.
We'll be back.
Suppose. We'll see you then, everyone. And lastly, thanks again to Gato Negro for giving us this great wine. All right, catch you then.